All right, hello everybody. Here we are in the Cessna Longitude, Cessna Citation, this beautiful private jet. We are at LaGuardia Airport, New York City, and I think you can see the skyline behind me there. And we're gonna request pushback. This guy's gonna push us back in a second here. And let's go for it. So we're gonna be flying up to Poughkeepsie, New York, or actually Newburgh, New York today, flying into Stewart International Airport, and I'll show you how we do it in this jet. So let's see, we're gonna get things started here. Let's go through our checklists for the cockpit and cabin, autocomplete those items, and while we're doing that, we can set autopilot. So we're going to set autopilot to the altitude to 4,000 today. It's a short little flight, so we're not going too high. It's just enough to get us over those mountains. And so you can see the altitude down here. So autopilot's not engaged yet. I'll engage it after I take off, and then that will allow us to go right to 4,000. Let's see how this is doing. So there we go. So we just requested a pushback. Now we're going to start our engines. They accepted the request. Let's see, where's that little guy? Here he comes. There's a little cart, little pushback thing. So I'm going to release my parking brake right there. Make sure my lights are all on. Beacon, landing, taxi, nav, and strobe. This guy better watch out. This guy sometimes has trouble finding the thing, so while he's working on that, let me make sure we're all set here. So what I'm also going to do is I'm going to set my flaps here to take off, which is this button right here. And so that moved my flaps there. I just felt that jolt, so it looks like he found the thing. And so we're going backwards, pushing us back. Change the view here so you can see. This guy better wait. So these roads here are not for the aircraft, they're for the trucks and other vehicles that work at the airport. And we're actually going to follow this. We're actually going to follow this yellow line to runway 4 over here. And so he's all set. So now we're far enough back where we can turn around. And so we just asked for taxi clearance. I'm going to put my feet on the rudders here. Great. So, all right, so we just got clearance to taxi, so here we go. Using my rudder pedals to steer, and my throttle here to provide some light thrust. And that truck didn't stop, so that's one of the glitches in the games, where it doesn't actually cause a crash. But that's good, because the trucks just kind of run into you. They don't stop for you. Alright, so here we are, we're following this yellow line. So I'm using my feet to control the rudder pedals, and that's also where the toe brakes are, so you actually just push down with your toes to hit the brakes. It's very helpful in turning, so there's a left brake and a right brake if we want to go slightly to the left or to the right. And this is actually the precise taxiway that aircraft would take to depart from runway 4 in LaGuardia. You can see the skyline to my right there. New York City.
Cessna X-ray Golf Sierra hold position caution other traffic.
Oh, they want us to hold. I don't see any other traffic, but let's see.
Position Cessna X-ray Golf Sierra.
Do you see any traffic? I don't see any traffic.
Cessna X-ray Golf Sierra,
Oh, the fuel truck. Well, that time, maybe they're working on that. There we go. He's going to stay there. Yes, he will. All right, it's almost there. A little too fast here. You're supposed to really only go no faster than 30, and that's even a little fast. 30 knots. All right, lining up with the runway. So you see these little markers here with the red 4, that's where we're going to stop.
Tower Cessna Alpha Sierra X-Ray Golf Sierra ready for IFR departure runway 4. Cessna Alpha Sierra X-Ray Golf Sierra cleared for takeoff runway 4.
Alright, so they cleared us for takeoff. I'm just going to do a quick run-up with the engine, which means I keep my brakes on. And I'm going to bring the throttle all the way up. Just monitor my engines, make sure that everything looks good. Because this is the full throttle that we're going to use during takeoff. We certainly want to make sure the engines don't fail upon takeoff. It's the most dangerous part of the flight. One of the most dangerous parts of the flight. And they look good to me, so here we go. Let's get on the runway. Always look both ways. It's being a little glitchy here. Hopefully that calms down in a second. Alright, we are on the runway. It's a beautiful day. Look at that. Got my windsock there. It's only about 4 knots or so right now. Let me just stop that. It's being a little glitchy. Okay. Let's move this out of the way because that's annoying. We're going to pull up this other thing here. Okay. All right, here we go. And throttles all the way, full throttle. Just got to see my speed here. So rotation speed is 120 knots, 120, so we're at 100 now, almost there. There we go. Positive rate of climb, gear up. Watch that gear coming up. Beautiful. I'm going to take my feet off the rudder pedals. Lower my throttle just a little bit. I'm going to stay at under 250 knots while we're still low here.
127.05 for Cessna X-Ray Golf Sierra.
My rate of climb is around 2,000 feet per minute. That's right where we want it. I'm going to pull my flaps up because we're now hitting 250. Damages the flaps if it's if we're going faster than 250 knots. And our vertical speed is about 1,300 feet, which is fine. Make sure that FMS is on. Nope, it's not. There we go. So now the nav is going to take us to this red line. Going to have to turn slightly to the right. All right, so we're flying back to the nav line here. So we're all set there. And it's cool, we can actually toggle the weather here. See what that looks like. So there's some clouds here, but they're not red, so that's good. And then we can actually look at a couple different views here. So this is straight ahead. So if we wanted to, we could turn slightly to the left to avoid these clouds, but we're not at an altitude that we're going to really worry about that. Otherwise, very clear day. Let's get back to the map. So we're actually passing White Plains Airport here on the right, KHPN. Let's see if we can get a look at that. Actually right at cloud level. So there's KHPN, White Plains. There we go. So if you're ever driving along the highway here, this is the Bronx, or no, this is 684, and you see planes coming in right overhead, that's because they're landing right there at that airport. The highway is right next to the runway. Alright, so we're going to come back in here. We ended up going very slowly, so we're going to increase our throttle, get up near about 330 knots, maybe 320. Make sure. That looks good there. So, our next waypoint is IGN. It looks like we have about 30 nautical miles to go, and it'll take us, our ETA is 1905, and that's UTC time. And right now it's 1854 UTC time. So it's about, we'll touch down in about 10 minutes. So when we hit Moline, we're going to have to be at 3,000 feet. And when we hit the waypoint called Papau, we're going to have to be at 2,500 feet. So 3,000, 2,500, and that's when we hit the glide slope. That's when the autopilot will start descending us toward the runway, and I'll disengage autopilot at about 500 feet, and then fly it manually from there. So we just have to remember Moline and Papau. Alright, so that is clear to the approach. That means that we can continue as planned. So, you can't quite see the Hudson River, but it's over here. Fuel looks good. We got 44% left. We were only at 50% when we took off. Let's come back to the cockpit. Alright, so I know I have to get down to, what did I say, 3,000 when we hit Moline, so I'm going to put that into the computer now. So I'm just looking down here and I'm adjusting the knob up here. So it's not going to bring us down to 3,000 quite yet, but when I engage vertical speed, when we get a bit closer, I'll tell it how quickly to descend, and then it'll descend to whatever I've set this to, so 3,000 feet. Right now we're still locked in at 4,000 feet. And so we're coming up to some of the highest mountains in this area. This is around Beacon and Bull Hill. It's actually a little bit west of here near the Hudson. I believe this is 84. Let's see if that makes sense. Yep, because here we are, and their Stewart is, and I know 84 goes over there to Newburgh and over the Newburgh Beacon Bridge. So here's some mountains. So that's why we have to be at 4,000 feet. It's a little bit higher terrain here than in the valley. Actually, those mountains over there are the highest, which is what we'll have to fly very close to when we turn into Newburgh, so we just want to keep an eye out for those. This is looking west. Alright, there we go. We just got permission to descend to 3,000. So I'm going to bring my throttle down just so we don't overspeed, because when we descend we're naturally going to take on a little bit of airspeed. So I already set altitude here to 3,000, so I'm going to engage vertical speed and click that. And now I'm looking right down here, so I'm setting it to about 1,500, maybe a little bit faster. There's no rush, we got plenty of time. So about 1,800 feet per minute is our descent rate. So we're, as we can see with our altimeter here, and even back here on our main display, we're just about down to 3,000 feet. We are close to these mountains here, but if we're too close, it shows up here. It actually tells us how high above the mountains that we are, how high above the mountains we are, and we're not close enough yet for that to engage. Looks like we're close, but we're at least 1,000 feet. Not exactly sure when it kicks in, either 1,000 feet or 2,000 feet, but we should be fine. So here you see it's leveling off at 3,000 feet. This is our vertical speed indicator, so we're only going, we're only descending slightly. And as you can see, the aircraft is turning slightly to the left here, so it's following our navigation. So there's IGN, that's just a waypoint along the way, and then Moline is when we are going to turn to final approach. So Moline is when we want to make sure that we're starting to slow down. Our flaps and our gear are ready to go down. Our flaps are ready to go up. And Papau is when we have to hit 2,500 feet. So that is that's the key right there. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit here to this map because we are getting a bit closer, and I don't need to slow down that much. So I'm going to accelerate, bring my throttle up because we're down to 3,000 feet. Zoom in. It's a little annoying because sometimes you have to zoom into this. Why is it not letting me do that? Come on. There we go. Actually, I think that zoomed out. Okay. So there we are, a little too far. That's fine. So actually here's KPOU, which is Poughkeepsie's regional airport. And here's a little minor airport here. I'm not sure the name of that one. Let's see if we can see it. There it is, right out the window.
Cessna Alpha Sierra, X-ray Golf, Sierra New York approach. Continue to Mohammed Slant. Altimeter 29.902.
Let's check our speed here. Whoa, getting a little too fast. Alright. So we are taking that turn. I'm just going to adjust my altimeter. Alright, so here we can see the Hudson River is on our right. We'll see it here when we straighten out. And we'll see Poughkeepsie, KPOU, the airport. And this is very cool. It's called a glass cockpit here, so you can see the terrain in front of you. So even if this is dark and we can't actually see outside, we can see it on our glass cockpit. So it shows we've got some mountains coming up here. So this is like LaGrangeville over here. Very realistic looking. Alright, let's see if we can see Poughkeepsie. Probably not from this angle, but we can do it from outside.
Cessna X-ray Golf Sierra, 014 miles, northeast.
There it is. So there's Poughkeepsie Airport, Regional Airport. There's the Hudson River. The city of Poughkeepsie's right over there, I believe. I don't see the bridge. Where's the bridge? You see the bridge? Well, it's somewhere out there. Alright, so I need to focus on flying now, because we are heading to final. So I'm going to lower my throttle here. I'm going to bring us down to 2,500 feet. That's where we need to be at Papau. Watch these mountains here. So 2,500 feet. Vertical speed. As you can hear, it wants my landing gear down, but I don't need it quite down. I don't need it down quite yet. So here we go, going down to 2,500. Here's the Newburgh Beacon Bridge. Check my speed, that's still good. I'm going to put my flaps to setting 1. It's just telling me to put my landing gear down because I put my throttle to idle, so it thinks that I'm about to land, but I just wanted to slow down. So my throttle's no longer idle. I'm going to bring it up a little bit because I put my flaps to setting 1, which slows the plane down, so I need a little bit more throttle to compensate. And almost to 2,500, checking my altimeter again, making sure that's where it needs to be. And here are these mountains that I talked about earlier. So thankfully we're still at 2,500, so we would clear them even if we were over them. But we would be breaking some laws if we were directly over them, because we need to be at least 1,000 feet above any obstacles. So here we are just about at Papau. This is where we need 2,500. They just cleared us to land, so I'm going to get my approach here, something I should have done a little bit sooner. And that's going to bring us down. So I'm going to bring my throttle down. Flaps setting 2. Bring my landing gear down. So my gear is going down. And it's always cool to watch that come down. There we go. Back in the cockpit. And so it's flying on its own right now. I'm going to bring flaps to full as soon as this hits 180. It's descending on its own. It knows exactly how quickly it needs to go. So we just flew over the Hudson River. Look at that. So this is Newburgh over here. All right. So flaps are now going to full, and I want to... There's the runway. I want to keep my speed at about 149 for the approach. And I'm going to engage auto spoilers or speed brakes, which means as soon as my wheels touch, those speed brakes are going to come up and slow the plane down. I'm also going to engage my auto brakes, so as soon as the wheels hit, my brakes will engage. So the only thing I'm really controlling right now is my throttle, keeping that speed right around 149. I'm going to put my feet on the rudder pedals, get them ready so I can steer the plane once we touch down. Otherwise, everything looking good. There's 84 right here, and here's 87 right there. Actually, this is 87. There's that big interchange right around there. All right, so we're at 500 feet. I'm going to disengage autopilot here in a second. We're still looking good though, so I'm going to keep it there. All right, disengaging autopilot. So I am flying this manually in. Don't really need to touch too much because we're on track. And we're over the threshold, so I'm going to lower my throttle, pull up slightly, and flare. And we are down. So my reverse thrust is on. My brakes are on. Here's a look at what we look like. Perfect, right on the center line. Very nice landing. Alright, so they want us to exit the runway. So, oops, my reverse thrusters were still on there for a second. Should have taken them off around 60 knots. Got distracted by the beautiful landing. So we're going to follow this yellow line here, which brings us to the taxiway. There we go.
Cessna X-ray Golf Sierra contact ground on 121.9er.
Well, there you have it. A flight from LaGuardia Airport to Stewart International.
121.9er Cessna X-ray Golf Sierra.
I'm going to stop right here because I need to get permission from ground to go further. But that's it.